everybody. Welcome to Keeping It Local. It is episode 24, and I am here with Phil DePaul from BoomZeal Enterprises. What's going on, Phil?
What's up, John?
I am very happy to have you on. Excited to have this conversation because you have a lot going on, and I'm excited to hear about all of this. So give us a little overview of your businesses and what you do.
Sure, I'll give you a little lay of the land for where I'm at now. So again, thanks for having me on today. It'll be fun to chat. Phil DePaul, CEO of BoomZeal Enterprises. And if you're trying to figure out what that is, so am I. We're having fun exploring, how to, well, what I should start with is our mission statement. We exist to make home maintenance more manageable across Long Island. And I got into business for myself just over 5 years ago now, launched a franchise by the name of United Water Restoration Group, and immersed myself in the 24/7 lifestyle of providing damage mitigation services and cleanup for things like water damage or fire and smoke. And it was really kind of the baptism into home improvement, home services. As I transitioned from careers in program and project management, I worked in wholesale and supply. And fast forward, I've launched a construction company. I've acquired an existing junk removal and light moving business, and then launched the second franchise by the name of One Tom Plumber, which I'm proudly rocking here today, the pink
Nice.
plunger here across Long Island. So this has been kicking for about a year and a half. And yeah, just riding the entrepreneurial wave of trying to create value and make good things happen. And I've definitely, had some ups and downs along the way. So
Nice. Okay, because that was so ironically enough, I found your restoration company on Instagram, and I'm looking around and I'm like, ooh, I definitely want to have a restoration company on, because the main focus of the podcast really is like it's a lot, honestly, for my customers and anybody else who
sure.
listens to it, great. But my goal with this is really, number one, like, it gives me a chance to network and meet people and have like a deep conversation instead of speed dating. And number two, it's almost like an introduction to my people. Like, hey, if you want a restoration company, check out my interview with Phil, see if he's your kind of guy. They might come on, they might be perfect for you. So I was like, ooh, restoration. Yeah, this is great. And then when I found out about BoomZeal, I was like, whoa, there is way more going on here. So this is going
You
to be
went
a
down the
really
rabbit
interesting.
hole. Uh-oh.
Hey, right. Everybody goes down rabbit holes now. Why not? At least this is a productive one. So I was like, oh, there's a lot going on here. So was the idea to acquire these other businesses and bring it all under one roof, was that in order to make it essentially like a full service one-stop shop for homeowners?
So this hasn't been exactly like a masterfully mapped out plan that I'm
Okay.
on. I started with one thing and I was fully focused on building a successful restoration team and a company. From day one, I referred to myself as the CEO, even though I was the guy in the field doing whatever needed to be done. I was literally a helper. I wasn't even a lead technician when we started the business. And I told my team from the get-go, I said, your job is to fire me from every position along the way because I want to create room for growth for everyone inside of this business. I want to create the environment that, maybe I was searching for as an employee inside of other people's businesses. And then just, day after day, week after week, month after month unfolded. And then, we're looking, it was like 2.5 years in. And I'm like, okay, we kind of built something here. We have a team. This business does not rely on me. I went from playing the secretary, the receptionist, the bookkeeper, all of those hats, and I was able to shed more and more of them, which was really it was really empowering to me. And it was also how I empowered other people to play as big of a role as possible in my business. So much so that I'm like, all right, great. What's the next thing? Even though I probably wasn't even a fully baked restoration entrepreneur. So then, I've referred to myself multiple times as a fat kid at the entrepreneurial buffet. So I never saw a business concept that I didn't like, that I didn't want to try. And, I can be reckless with chasing butterflies, as I like to say. And every opportunity is a butterfly. And there's a good one. Oh, that one looks nice. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole. It was particularly in 2022, when we launched United Shield Contracting, and then 6 months later, I had signed on a dotted line to acquire low price junk removal, and it was just like I was connecting the dots that I wanted to. I'm like, yeah, we could do this, and just because you could doesn't mean you should. That was the motto from that year. That was the big takeaway. Because what happens is as you start to like diversify, and the thing I was chasing, I should back up, is that restoration is very much a reactive, responsive business. You
Hmm.
can't, like, I can't launch a cold calling campaign today. Hey, is your basement flooded? Hey,
Right, right,
is there a hole in your roof? Hey, did
right.
you just have a electrical fire? I suppose we could. I just don't imagine that it would be, met with a warm reception or
Yeah, you don't want to be hoping for all the disasters that are causing people to
no.
need restoration.
I literally used, John, I used to hand my card out and I go, I hope you never have to call me, but if you
Yeah,
do, we'll be here. So that's not there's not even a like, there's no sell. It's kind of like, this is what I do,
right.
And I didn't even know about the restoration industry that much before I researched it and jumped into the franchise. I was like, oh, those trucks with like the flames and the tidal waves on the side. I was like, is there really, that's a whole business? Like, and then you realize you're like, damn, this stuff happens more than we realize. The everyday property damage and then the connection to homeowners insurance or property insurance. And then you're like, oh, you start to uncover, opportunities to build a profitable business and also opportunities to help the community. So that was the thing I wanted to build. We would complete a project for someone, we'd get to know them intimately. And then it was like, I hope I never see you again.
Yeah,
We're
right,
not an
right,
ice cream shop. It's not like come back tomorrow for the
right.
raspberry special.
Yep.
So that was the thing that I believe I was chasing was, hey, we got to be able to serve the people that we meet in a deeper way. And maybe we could meet people before they have like the disaster. And then they know we're there. And that's one less thing they got to worry about is who should I call? Do I know, like, and trust them? So that's like the why and how we got there. And
Hmm.
then, the what's that we jumped into has been, just the process that
Right. Okay.
we've gone through in terms of growth. But
Well, and like you were touching on it. I mean, you're showing up with restoration. You're showing up in a lot of times in like the darkest hour
yeah,
of someone's life, like where potentially one of the worst things has happened to them, and you have to be there and you have to take care of them. But like you said, it's like you can't wish repeat business from them in that
no.
sphere. You have to then move on to something else. But this is such a smart thing where, because I'm sure you're developing great. Like you seem like a good person, like someone who's treats their clients right and does everything right
Correct.
by them. So to have another avenue to be able to service them is huge. It really, really smart.
Yeah, and the key is not to get hung up on it just being like another profit center, another, revenue stream. And sometimes as business owners, like we can lose sight, right? I mean, especially like usually I always learn more through pain, and financial pain is one of the best teachers, so then it's like you start chasing the dollar just because, you're too behind, and then sometimes you might get ahead of yourself. But as long as I think we're all human, right? You come back to center and you're like, why are we doing this? Oh yeah,
Mhm.
we really want to help people. I want to help build meaningful relationships and provide solutions to clients. And the thing that really gets me is building a team of people who are, beside me and behind me while we do that thing. So, there's a lot of ways, especially look, the real estate profession, you're kind of independent, but you also, whether you work in terms of a team or a pack, I think that it offers some of those, unique abilities. And I like the idea of working collaboratively with others because you can produce outsized results in terms of the significance. And
Mhm.
usually with significance will come, a value and you're always chasing the win-win setup. That's the way I look for it. Nobody should lose as a result of whether it's doing business with each other, or for each other.
Yeah, and I like you have somewhat of an alternative approach, like you said, like going like serial entrepreneurship and diving into different things, but at the heart of it is to provide more service to the people that you're taking care of. And it remind I've been told so many times, and I did it for a long time. It's like, oh, get a coach, get a coach, get a coach. And I did. I had a coach for over a year. And I have a business partner with real estate who we work in tandem as a team, like everything's 50-50 and it's great.
Hmm.
And I was like, after a year of coaching, I kind of realized like I don't really need the coach. I don't need someone to tell me what to do. I need more of the team atmosphere to bounce the ideas off of and discuss things. And like, because
Mhm.
I have enough creativity, I have enough ideas. I don't need someone to affirm with me that, oh, that's hey, what's up, guys? John from the Nest Egg team here. Thank you for watching so far. Really quickly, the real estate market is constantly changing. So if you're wondering what your home value is or how much equity you have in your home currently, click the link below in the description and you'll find out very quickly. Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show. That's a great idea, John. Like my coach didn't give me a single idea the entire time I was going there, and that's fine.
Mhm.
Um, I was like, I just need someone to bounce the ideas off of and to refine them and figure out, okay, what's the right
Yeah.
approach. So teams are huge. And then the other thing I want to ask you, as far as like, what's your approach to customer service? Like, what is your approach when dealing with the customer and, um, you know, giving them the know, like, and trust and making them understand that you're the right person to work with?
I think it starts with authenticity, right? Because especially when you start in a new business, you don't even know what you don't know. But if you could know yourself, be comfortable in your own skin and be sincere, then just have a conversation, ask good questions, find out how can I help you, and then always under promise and over deliver. So if you set the bar low, then you can come in above it. But if you're real with someone, don't tell them that I'll build you a brand new house, and then halfway through you're over budget, behind schedule, and the thing's falling apart, right? It sounds like common sense. You're like, but if you're chasing the dollar, then you say yes to that. But if you're chasing the relationship and the right solution, then the outcome will be materially different. And for me, it was always thinking marathon, not a sprint, marathon, not a sprint, projects, not jobs. Like, don't think about, putting today's dollar ahead of, tomorrow's reputation, because that thing will haunt you. So I feel like I've grown up in atmospheres that I either was around, leaders that were not living up to an expectation, and I learned how I didn't want to be, and then some leaders that, represented the positive intent and the character building in other people to help them grow that confidence. Or you have to grow it yourself. Like, there's a lot of ways to stimulate growth. You can be, I always say, like, fear could be a big motivator, or reward and incentives could be a big motivator, but whatever fuels you is the thing to find. So for me, I at such an early age, I found a center, and then you just kind of spin around that center of like, why am I here on the earth? What am I here to do? Is it just about me? Because if it's just about me, my life is small. But if I want to try to have an impact and I influence other people, all of a sudden my life, my purpose feels bigger. Like, and then it is rewarding in and of itself, even if you don't always measure it day to day in your bank account. I just believe in, the good vibes philosophy. And, I mean, what is it? The golden rule? My son, he's 5. He's probably learning it in school, like, do unto others, right?
Right.
So if someone's going to come in your house and try to sell you a false bill of goods, like, I don't like that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like, why is my mission to help make home maintenance more manageable on Long Island? Well, because I think it was 2010. I bought my first home, and you don't even know what you're getting into. Like, so who can I lean on to just help me manage even part of the process, right? Sometimes we're happy if we find one, whether it's a contractor or a white collar or a blue collar professional, to just help figure out, what the hell do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I know the type of person that I'd want to meet, that I'd want to interact with. So let me just try to model what I would want to see, like, put myself in the other person's shoes. What would the ideal, whether it's a partner or service provider, look like? What would they sound like? How would they act? Would they be authentic, right? Would they operate with integrity? Would they hold themselves accountable? Or are they snake oil salesmen?
Right.
So
No,
to me, it sounds obvious.
same. Like I'm like everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, like that's exactly the way I approach it too, and the way I feel when I'm about to get some type of service. It's the exact same thing. It's like I just want to be spoken to. and be able to believe what I'm hearing and know I'm not being sold a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, you look into
It's so
somebody else's
refreshing.
eyes and you're like, all right, are we here together? Are we present?
Right.
Do we want good things for each other or do you want what's good for you? Because
Hmm.
like it's got to be win-win, like I said earlier, or no deal.
Right.
And anything other than that is a dangerous breeding ground. You mentioned something earlier too. I didn't want to miss. So you're talking about your partnership and you're talking about your ideas, right? Which I refer to as butterflies. And as I've started to build out my team even more intentionally around me and figure out, all right, I have these ideas, I have these ambitions, I want to have this massive impact, right? I want to do so many things. I want to create value. I want to empower other leaders. The most important thing is to not go at warp speed and figure out, hey, who's the right person for this opportunity? And you work with a coach and sometimes you're like, yeah, maybe they're a good coach for X, but what I need right now is Y. And there's a framework, not coaching per se, is it's called EOS. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, Gino Wickman, the
No.
Traction Library. And there's this concept of the VI duo, the visionary and the integrator.
Oh, yes, yes, I am familiar with this. Yes.
Okay. And I'm,
Yeah.
it probably exists in, 20 different ways, but I'm a big fan of EOS. And the idea is that sometimes, oftentimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we are both like, oh, I got the idea. I got to do it. I got the idea. I got to do it.
Yep.
But then we wear all these hats. And when you just acknowledge, right? I think of it like meditation. Sometimes meditation, it's hard. That's why they call it practicing meditation. Like I
Right.
can't stop thinking, but it's like just noting and you're like, oh, that was a thought. That was a thought. And trying
Right.
to separate the difference between I am not my thoughts. That was a thought. It's not me. And sometimes acknowledging, oh, I got to be a visionary, but then someone's got to do it. And I have an idea, but then who's going to do it? Because the more hats you wear, the less of your resources go towards doing any one thing. So it relates to me being the serial entrepreneur, which looks great, but it creates this madness in our brains and in our time schedules and in our lives that just gets nuts. So, I hope that your partnership and how you're breaking down the, whether it's responsibilities, the strengths, and trying to find ways to get things done. You try to find, a place and a time for all your things, your ideas and your ambitions, because trying to do them all at once is, that's kind of a big part of my story and my journey.
Yeah, it's well, and I feel like we probably have this a similar brain in that regard because it's like how well, let me ask you this. How hard was it for you to start giving up all of those roles that you had taken on? And I mean, I'm sure it was probably easier when you knew you had the right people around, but in the beginning,
Yes.
I imagine it was probably tough.
But the key was I went in with the intention. Like I said, from when I started my business, I wanted to be the guy who worked on the business and not in the business. So you have that perspective, kind of when you're in a room quiet and alone and before it all starts rolling. And then you're in it, right? And you're like, man, how do I get out of it? How do I not be stuck in it so I can work on it? And I like to say I always was able to go back to that healthy perspective. No, this is like a vision of this is where I'm going. And that helped me eventually get there. But the day to day in the weeds, so much to do, not enough time. Who could do it? And a lot of us, we think of our businesses as our babies. We think of our clients as our babies. And you're like, oh, don't drop the baby, right?
Yep.
And it is a hard separation thing when you care about all the little details that make up, because the business and its reputation is defined by those little things. It's the sum of all those little things. So letting go of them and saying, please do your best. And a lot of times it really starts with intention because I could want the best, but it might not always happen. So it's like you can aim for excellence or aim for perfection, but it doesn't manifest that way. So when you feel confident that you have the right person to inherit the opportunity, that's what it is. Responsibility is opportunity. People should see it as a blessing. I like to say I don't give out jobs. You don't take a job working for me. Like you seize or chase an opportunity or a mission to work alongside me in pursuit of something bigger. So
You answered my next question because I was going to ask you, like, what is it like to be on your team or on one of your teams.
Yeah, it sounds like that, especially nowadays. I'm like, well, what's your mission? What are your rocks? And again, going back to EOS, it has a really good framework for, leading a high performance team using measurables and creating clarity. I'm very much leaning into that right now. So what I'm trying to do is help in other people's minds because I've been working on this for decades in my brain, and
Hmm.
it didn't happen overnight. So I'm trying to help people understand how I think. And now I have some of the right vocabulary and some of the right opportunities where I'm like, well, who do you want to be? What are you great at? Like, I don't want to put you in a position where you're going to struggle and it's going to feel like work or it's going to feel like a job. Like, you should, doing the work should allow you to express some of your talents or your, the things that you really enjoy doing. Like, what mountain do you want to climb? As long as you're a climber, I'll find a mountain for you to climb, but
Hmm.
it's work and it shouldn't necessarily be easy, but it should feel easy in the sense that am I in the right place doing essentially a thing that I want to do with people that I, know, like, trust, and feel aligned with. So,
Hmm.
I'm big on speaking about our values, is being culturally obsessed with, well, who are we? Because at the end of the day, you could tell with all the different business models that I've started, I'm less tied to an industry, to a specific vertical, than I am to building these teams that, do meaningful things together. And the common ingredient is who, what defines us. So,
Well, because if they lose your mission, then the whole project takes an enormous hit. Like if they're not absorbing what you're preaching and why you started and what you created, if that's especially if they're dealing with a lot of the customers and everything, if they're not pushing that out there on your behalf, then they're not pushing out your mission in your company, and it's not interacting with the customer in the right way.
yeah. And
Um,
what I like to say is I'm not the brand. We are. Like, it's
right.
not a me thing, it's a we thing. So we have to share some of those most important things, the things that help us differentiate ourselves. That's the thing we have to have in common. And we also have to be on the same journey together in terms of where we're going. So it makes me play more of that visionary role because damn, the more people who have their own vision and as they develop more vision, your vision has to be big enough to fit theirs inside of it. So it's
Hmm.
like, oh wow, I want to give a runway. I want to give a runway that doesn't, pigeonhole us, but it says we're going places. Do you want to go the places that I have in mind? Because if not, jump on somebody else's bus.
What does it feel like when a team member like comes in with their own like big idea, like how does that make you feel as like really I would call it CEO team lead?
Yeah, so we always talk about the BoomZeal Kool-Aid, and I'm dishing it out. When somebody else pours me a glass of their Kool-Aid, oh boy, yeah, things get real.
Light you up.
Yeah, even like happy hour.
Well, so all right, you have to be a very good communicator to be at the top. And also you said something that I thought was critical, which is you explain your thinking, um, which a lot of people don't do. And I think a lot of people fail, especially when you're in a higher up role where they expect you to let me rephrase that. The person up top can fail if they expect the people that are working with them to know what they're thinking without explaining it. So were you always a strong communicator? Did you always explain your thinking well, or was that a skill that you've developed again through trial and error?
So it's a great question because when people see you, right? Look, we're technically meeting each other officially, our first face-to-face conversation right now. And when you meet someone, they see you're like, oh, look at this guy, he's doing.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sean again. Sorry to bother you and interrupt, but if you like what you're seeing, then please click that like and subscribe button. The great thing about keeping it local is you're meeting local businesses and local entrepreneurs who provide phenomenal service. So, this is almost like an initial job interview into someone that you might have in your own home to provide this job or service. So, again, if you like what you're seeing, click that like button, click that subscribe button. Other than that, let's get back to the program.
He's doing these things, businesses, blah, 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 real estate transactions, $1 million home, right? It's like they see you, oh, you speaks this way, he does this. Like, I've been in the oven for a long time. I was raw dough and I still feel like I'm only half baked. So when it comes to having critical conversations and communicating effectively, you know the best way to learn. It's not just by like reading, it's not by like thinking, it's literally by doing. So what's happened is I just over time, I've just continued to push myself into situations where if I want to make an impact and I want to rally a team behind me, well then I've morphed into more of the visionary. I always resonated with that of the operator, of the integrator. I feel like that's who I was. I feel like I was the guy, always made to be a guy behind the guy. And I tell my team all the time, like, just because now I'm up here in front of you, like leading, it's not because I was born this way. Like, I've just stacked the experiences over time to whether it's have tough conversations or face adversity or obstacles, because running the other way teaches you nothing. And instead, if you embrace the suck of situations in the moment, you get to reap the rewards of having done them. I call them shit sandwiches. Like, eat the shit sandwich
Yep.
because, when you do that, all of a sudden you just get used to it. You just sort of accept the fact that like things worth doing are generally hard. So, here's a good example that I like to use. I signed up for a triathlon a handful of years ago. I did so because I just wanted a physical challenge and I wasn't sure exactly what to do. And oh yeah, I really didn't know how to swim. So, so by signing up, I go, oh, this is going to be a challenge. And then I created the conditions by which if I don't technically learn how to swim, I'm going to fail. Like it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's gonna
So
be bad.
so what I did was, right, I set a goalpost that I'm like, well, now go and practice, go do the thing that's gonna make it work. And then guess what? I went from being the guy who didn't really like the water. I always thought I was a land-loving creature. I'd look at the water, be like, it's pretty. I'll go get wet in the summer. I'll cool off, and then
Yeah.
I'll get out. To you get in the water with intention of I'm gonna learn how to swim. And then the process, like who comes out the other side, I actually love swimming now. So I acquired, and you know why? A big part of it was probably like, I'm not good at the thing. I don't like the thing. And then I just did it anyway. And
Mhm.
now it's probably like a sense of pride. It's probably like, oh, I kind of know what to do. I've built up a competency. So I always think that confidence comes from competence. So if you don't test yourself, how are you going to build up confidence? Because you look at and again, there's another thing I'll say, the mirror. Like, look in the mirror. Just be honest with what you see. And either you're happy with it or you're not, but do something about it if you
Mhm.
want it to change. You can't stand there and wait for the conditions to change. You got to sometimes create the conditions. Sometimes a catalyst can be external, that you have to do a thing because, and the best way to be ready for that? Optionally expose yourself to challenges, to stimuli,
Mhm.
right? There's
Yep.
this big thing with the cold plunge now, right? People are doing it and they're embracing it. Well, why? What? Because there's reasons that who comes out of the tub, like who I am, whether it's mental fortitude or physical rehabilitation, right? There's a lot of reasons why. The one big reason not to is, man, that is uncomfortable.
Mhm. Mhm. It's a shame how little people want to deal with a struggle. And it doesn't have to be a massive struggle. Like you said, it could just be something that is unpleasant for a little bit or something you're not used to. Like I was never a runner. I always hated running. Like I was a football player, I was a lacrosse player for till my junior year. I was a wrestler. I did all these things. Running, you can make me run into anybody in the world. You could be like the guy's 6'4", 350 pounds. He runs a 4.5 40. I'll run into him. Like whatever happens, happens. Like I'm gonna do it. But
Yeah.
like you tell me to run 5 miles and I'm gonna be like, but then COVID happened, no gyms, and I'm like, all right, like I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm gonna go for a run. Like, cause I always like the therapeutic aspect of it, the mental aspect, and like, it's like any workout, you're happy when you're done. But by the time we were like deep into COVID, I was running 4.5 miles a day. And I loved it. I was like, this is great. Like, and I enjoyed it so much. And it, like you said, it was more, the physical side effects were great. The mental aspect of just like, okay, I know now, well, back then, I haven't been running as much, couple injuries, but I knew back then, like, all right, if you put me into a 5K, a 10K,
Mhm.
I'm not going to run it for time. Like I'm not going to finish it in like a great time or anything
You're gonna
worthwhile, but
show up though.
I'll get done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can get that race done. I will finish
Mhm.
it. I don't care if it takes me 12, 13 minutes a mile, but I could do it because
Mhm.
I know now it's up here because I've
Mhm.
overcome that struggle. And it's just so important to do things that, like you said, make you uncomfortable, but have a goal in mind too, like an achievement. Like I really just went into it and like, I'm going to run. And then I decided, all right, well, I want to be able to go 4 miles in this amount of time, like at a clip. So like I could just get up, run 4 miles and be done. And that was a key change, was knowing like, all right, now I know I could do it. Now, where do I want to be?
And you had to start. The key was you just had to start. Like, I think that we get stuck labeling ourselves, right? So that version of John could say, I'm not a runner. But guess what? The first time you go out and you go for a run, all of a sudden you flip the switch. You literally
Right.
went from I'm not a runner to, but I just ran.
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
a totally
sometimes we
different
create
ballgame.
this interference with like what's possible or like reinventing ourselves. Like sometimes reinventing ourselves is a moment to moment thing. You're like, I was one thing, but I can change it, right?
Yep.
And I think if the first person that in my life that I had to empower was myself. Like, let me just break down any preconceived notions about who I am, keep fighting to strip down ego, strip down, any limiting beliefs, because my story about running was very much the same as yours. I'm like, I've run, right? But I didn't associate as a runner. So
Yeah.
back up with the marathon talk, like it started before I learned how to swim, which was like running for distance was never a thing that I did. So it's like, I'm not a distance runner. I'm not a runner until I laced up my shoes one day and I went for a run. I'm like, well, I did it. It wasn't impressive. I'm winded. My shins hurt. But then you do it over time and you're not going to get worse. You're generally not going to get worse at doing a thing by practicing it. And that's where it starts. Be action oriented,
Hmm.
get out of our own way, get out of our own head. So, kudos to you for doing that. And you build up that competency of just acting and reducing the amount of interference between saying you can't do it, and cut that time down and just do the thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have such a desire, I feel like, as societally right now to like slap a label on something and say, like, oh, we did it, we identified it, and that's it. And it's like, if we're gonna eliminate the nuance to the conversation about who people are and what we think and what we do, it's crazy. Like you said, it was easy to slap a label on and say, like, I'm not a runner. And it's like, well, you just changed that in 2.5 seconds. Like,
yeah,
I
it's a new
wasn't a real,
story.
yeah, like I wasn't a real estate agent. Like, and then all of a sudden I was like, I want to learn how to do this. Like, this is really cool.
For me, I wasn't a business owner, and then bam, like
And then
I'm in
you
the
were.
game.
Yeah, you are now, you are like the official CEO of multiple companies. Like
You got to get on the field, or else the game never starts.
Yep.
So
And it's just about to like I always so I love the aspect of problem solving because real estate for me is fun. Well, I like to argue. I'm Italian, so that's just ingrained, and it's not so much arguing, but it's a debate, and there's a winner and a loser. Usually, it's at like 50-50. Is I don't really believe that. Like at some point, there's an advantage in a negotiation, and you have to decide, okay, like are we willing to move forward and be a little disadvantaged? It's very rare that it's like perfect 50-50 every
well,
time. And
because
everybody,
everybody wants to draw their lines, but the truth is, we don't even know where the hell we're drawing. They're arbitrary, those lines.
exactly. And I just wanted to, I decided my biggest thing, like, cause there's always little things that pop up in a transaction. And all I thought about was, cause I'm a big planner. Like for me, it's like, I want everything mapped out. Like, so I know what happened. So I
Don't
like,
get
I have
into restoration.
yeah, there's too many unknowns for me. I know what happens when you open up walls. Well, I guess the walls are already opened up, so that's one benefit usually. But I was just like, I said to myself, I'm like, I am going to, like a good agent, yes, I could put out as many fires as I want. I want to prevent every single fire from happening. And it's not always possible. But the way I have it set up now is like I want the smoothest transaction possible. And that's not a label of me being a real estate agent at that point. I feel like any endeavor I went into, that would be my mindset is like, okay, how do I make sure that I have no problems or as I mitigate as many problems as I can before we even start for my customer? Because to me, that's what's going to make them so happy. And like, you also, though, have to prepare them for like, hey, I'm going to do this, this, and this to prevent any problems. But I just need to let you know this, and this can also happen, and we'll address it when it comes.
Also, think about it. How do you know? You talk about a smooth process, right? But how do you know where the bumps in the road are until you travel the road,
Right.
right? So it's the same thing, like time under tension. You're like, I've been doing this. So my process went from a one-step process to a five-step process because I'm smoothing out the road. And then over time, you just get better at the thing. And
Hmm.
then, hey, I can speak. Remember, confidence comes from competence. So I've been down this road, right? You can tell your client, I've been down this road a number of times. I can point back and say, because I've seen this and this and this, I have a 21 step process. And, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
So, and again, managing the expectations, right? Because if you overpromise and underdeliver, they're going to be underwhelmed with the
Yep.
journey.
It's the worst. I hate, absolutely, I hate when that happens to me. And you could smell it right away when someone is giving it to you, and it's just like that turns me off so fast that I will end, I won't, I'll be polite, I won't like end a situation if someone's trying to sell me something, but that's it, it's done. Like there's no loyalty to that company. Like I might abolish that brand from my mind at that point. Like it's just, I get such a bad taste in my mouth. That is, to me, the worst thing I could possibly do is tell someone or inflate like a listing price because I want to get the listing. Like I tell them, like, if I've had that conversation a few times where it's like, look, if you want to list at this price, it is your house, it is your home, you are in charge of it. I am here to help you get it sold. But my advice would be here at this number. But if you, it's your investment. And if you truly want to list at this price, I will. But we're going to need to have a conversation if we're not getting the traction that we need after 2 weeks. And most people will respect that, and they'll say, okay, like they'll either agree with me or they'll say, yeah, we'll take our shot. If we have to do a price reduction or whatever, like if we have to talk in 2 weeks, we'll talk in 2 weeks. But I want to go at this number. And it's like, okay, I can't live with myself if I was to walk in and give that number and say like, oh yeah, let's do it, and just collect the listing. And then, oh, it's sitting. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like this is like, you're restoring people's homes. You are restoring their retirement accounts. Like that's what you are doing. You are bringing their livelihood, their nest egg back to full value when something terrible happens to it, like,
Absolutely.
and I view the selling of that in the same light where it's like, everything they have for where we live and what people are doing, for the majority of people here, everything they have is put into their home. So I want to make sure that I am getting them every single dollar I can and doing the best by them every single time, because it's so important. It's like, it's a once, twice in a lifetime transaction.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, sometimes all we have is our intent, right? So you're good in lead with your good intent and you'll figure out the details along the way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Phil, listen, this is a great conversation. I feel like we could probably go on for hours,
Oh
but I
yeah.
have a feeling that you are probably busy today. So I don't want to keep you much longer, but give me the rundown, BoomZeal, and the services again, just so we have it at multiple points here.
Yeah, for sure. So again, right now, BoomZeal Enterprises is comprised of, I'd say, three main brick and mortar services here across Long Island. We haven't really talked one-time plumber, so I'm gonna start with that. One-time plumber is your 24/7 emergency service responder for all leaks, drains, pipes, fixtures, heaters, boilers, and it pairs nicely with United Water Restoration, which exists to clean up your water damage, dry your structure, remediate your home from mold or odor or smoke or fire damage. We work with any insurance provider. We have a proven process. We found the bumps in the road. We try to smooth out that experience of going from the trauma that, oh my goodness, like you said, my biggest investment, my home is under attack, from water or some other unwanted invader.
Yep.
And pair that up with low price junk removal, who our team exists to, we pick things up and we put them down. If you want to create some space, you want to clean out that garage, you want to take down that shed, you want to, open up some room in your attic or clear out a bedroom, or, you're a lot of times our clients, whether they're in the process of moving or they have, family who might be aging and moving to another location, and, these are generational matters where, a lot of the properties that you come across, I'm sure, there's people going through different kinds of transitions,
Yep,
and low
absolutely.
price junk removal exists to help make those things go, whether it's to donation centers or a landfill if we can't find anywhere else for it. Those are the big ways that we're helping folks right now, and just looking forward to finding more ways over the years to add more value to the home maintenance and management process here on Long Island.
That's awesome. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with the potential seller or a seller and said, you don't need a pod, you need a dumpster. Um, like you
It's
don't need
hard.
that.
It's a
It's
lot
very
of
hard.
feelings involved.
Yep. I mean, I literally made a decluttering guide because I was like, I can't, you have to step and do it. Like, I know this is hard, but here's a step-by-step guide of everything
That's
you need to
brilliant. A
do.
decluttering guide.
It's just, you know what? People need, like you said, you need that push. You need to get that label off of you that you're a hoarder. Like, no, you're not. You have possessions that you feel like you might need one day. And I suffer from it too, where it's like, they're just, I know as soon as I throw it out, I'm going to be like, I need that little piece of whatever. So I put this guide together because it's like, look, follow these steps. It'll help you go room by room, get things out, and that'll make, like, we just annihilated the toys from our house because I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old girl, um, two little girls, and the house explodes. Like, you got a 5-year-old son, you got stuff everywhere. So
Mhm.
I was like, I can't have this anymore. And we got so much stuff out to the curb, and people took things. It was great. Some guy took like all the baby stuff because he had twins, wasn't
Yeah.
expecting twins. So he needed double
Whoops.
of everything. I'm like, I got more in the house. Hang on. I'm running outside with like bags of stuff. I'm like, you want this? You want this? Like, absolutely. It was awesome. But like, getting that stuff out is so much better than having it stay in your house in the rare 1 out of 5,000 times that you actually like, you know what, shucks, I wish I didn't throw that away. It's so infrequent. It's like,
You
just
got to move
get.
on, right? If you make space in your, we'll say in your home, then you make space in your life. You make
Mhm.
space in your head. So I'm not saying get rid of everything, but less is more.
Absolutely. It's so much more. And then all of a sudden now I'm like looking at my basement, like, oh, you know what? We probably could finish that side and maybe make another area, and I can make a real podcast office. Like, there's so many things that we could do. But like, because now we have more space and we have more ability to think about what we want to do instead of just thinking, wow, we're overwhelmed by all the junk that is down here. So
For sure. Well,
absolutely
kudos
get a
to you,
dumpster.
right? It's a tough pill to swallow.
They all the tough pills are hard, that's like, all the tough stuff is tough stuff, and that's why people don't want to do it. All right, well, Phil, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of other business people that follow this are going to find this enlightening and enjoyable.
Hope so.
And I think customer wise, clients out there, you're tackling so many things in one shot, so it's extremely helpful, and you're doing a lot of good for Long Island, so we appreciate that.
I appreciate the opportunity to share and share our journeys for 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Phil, thank you again for coming on. This was great. This will do it for episode 24. And oh, by the way, veterans, thank you. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you all. This will play after that, but happy Veterans Day. Thank you very much for everybody who has served out there. Truly appreciate that.
Indeed.